We hear a lot of perspectives on the Mankind podcast. Inclusion of a guest is not an endorsement of their views, and the opinions expressed here do not always represent the mission or values of the Mankind Project USA.
Looks like the rain has gone.
Hey everybody, it's Boys and Hodgson. Welcome back to the Mankind Podcast, the podcast where we are setting out and proving week on week that there is indeed more than one way to be a man. Complicating questions and answers around masculinity and manhood for 3 years and 150 episodes. I'm so psyched. Today, I am welcoming Charlie Razook to the program. Charlie, say hello.
Hello, thanks for having me.
This has been a conversation that's been coming for a little while, and we're going to be talking about men's health. We're going to be talking about self-care. We are going to be talking about kind of changes in attitudes and changes in thinking around how we take care of ourselves as men. We're going to be talking about toxicity in the environment. There's a bunch of things that we're going to be bringing in today, so stick around. Charlie Razook is the founder of a certified clean men's skincare brand, Jackfir. Charlie founded Jackfir after a battle with leukemia when he became aware of the chemicals in our daily lives that can be and are making us sick. He decided to bring a less toxic men's option to the personal care aisles. Charlie is passionate about changing men's health for the better, often speaking on the topic, and he also just said that he practices radical transparency. So we will see how far and how deep we can get into that. So Charlie, thank you for coming and hanging out.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. These are all topics I think about all day, every day. So I'm excited to be here.
Really cool. So I think we're going to start with kind of a big picture question because you are in the heart of it. How is the narrative and how's the landscape changing with things like men's healthcare products like Jackfir? Like, I remember what it used to be like. Seems like it's a little different today.
Yeah, that's for sure. And it's actually changing kind of like simultaneously with views on men's health and men's health and wellness practices in general. So I think that it's kind of I got into both men's health and clean men's skincare at the same time due to my own battle with cancer when I decided to take my own health more seriously and realized that men's health is changing. And that's what allows brands like mine to succeed because men are finally taking care of themselves and embracing things like skincare. So, it was kind of by chance that I started this company. I couldn't find a non-toxic alternative to the men's skincare I was using, the brand I was using. So I was using women's brands. And then I did more research into the industry and found that, the past 5 years, men's skincare finally has really been taking off. And a lot of that has to do with changing views on men's health and, gender and sex stereotypes. And so it just was a lot of things coming together at once that kind of, one, piqued my interest, but two, allows my brand to even exist.
So let's go back to move forward a little bit. So talk about your own health journey with leukemia. Take us back. What happened?
Totally. Yeah. So, excuse me. I was living in Italy, getting my MBA at Stabaconi in Milan, and right before my summer internship over there, I just hadn't been feeling well and finally figured it out through some blood tests that I had leukemia. So 2 days later, I was on a flight back to the US, checked into Sloan Kettering, did a month of inpatient, and then 3.5 years of outpatient. So it was a real journey. That was in June 2018.
Wow.
After about a year, I was able to go finish my degree at NYU Stern because I had to be near the hospital. So I did my last semester there. But during this whole time, I just became really obsessed with clean living because I don't really have any genetic markers for cancer or a big family history of cancer. So the only other thing my doctors could tell me is there's just environmental causes, and they don't really know what they are. One obvious thing was to stop smoking. I did smoke probably like half a pack a day by the end when I was living in Italy, but they couldn't link it just directly to that. Benzene, which is also sometimes found in skincare products. You've probably seen some of the sunscreen recalls. That's in cigarettes. And so that's one thing they do tell you to avoid. But other than that, they just vaguely told me environmental factors. So I became obsessed with cleaning up my life. And that included my personal care. The most obvious things were clearly food and water, because that's going through you, and very easy to picture those toxins getting into your body. But then I was like, okay, my skin's my biggest organ. What do I interact with like on the outside? And that was most obviously household cleaners and like skincare and personal care products. And I'd like to quickly add, I am in good health. I had my last bone marrow biopsy, which was just monitoring the disease in December, and now I just have my annual doctor's appointment.
Thank you. And yes, I'm glad to hear that and happy to hear that. And skin are the largest organ, right? You just said that. You just said that as a thing. So what are the kind of things that we are putting on our bodies generally that you went out and said, wow, I no longer want to be putting any of this on my body?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like the further I dove into my research and found first of all, it was very overwhelming. I didn't want to check every ingredient on all of these lists. Like it's so much to decipher. They write like their Latin names. It's all very confusing. And then there are all these chemical names. And so I found resources like the Environmental Working Group that have a skin deep database that ranks how clean products are. But of course, I did initially read into individual ingredients as well. And there are lots of, for example, like formaldehydes and formaldehyde releasing agents, that's not something you would think would be in your skincare, but it is in a lot of skincare. Yes. Talc is in a lot of skincare. Sulfites, parabens are the ones you hear the most about. And a lot of brands will say, we're clean, we don't have sulfates. Like, that's not enough. There's so many other things like triclosan and MCTs and just, I don't want to bore you with all the names, but basically when you go into it, you see that, wow, these have allergen potentials. These have carcinogenic potentials. These have endocrine disrupting potential. And I think that's now coming to the forefront. You hear a lot about endocrine disruptors, which really has to do with like kind of like hormonal balancing and like the inner working of your body. And all of these things can affect fertility. They can affect chronic and acute diseases. And what I always like to say is, using a very chemical shampoo once, like, of course, that's probably not going to kill you. But these little choices we make on a daily basis really increase our toxic burden. So just making a small change, like swapping out your skincare, can have a big difference and kind of like trickle effect towards like the rest of your lifestyle changes.
Thank you. Endocrinology, one of the things that you threw into our initial conversation were some of the stats around men and, the things that I don't know if you have those top of mind, tip of your tongue, but I have them in front of me if you want me to read them.
Yeah. Well, I have a few stats I like to point to like on that endocrine side, I think that women are often always kind of faulted for fertility issues when at the same time, there are some studies that say sperm counts have decreased, whether that's in mobility or motility, whatever, sperm's not working the same and have gone down by 50% since 1970. And obviously that sounds pretty tied to some chemical and industrial changes in consumer attitudes and just the general like industry. So men are becoming infertile as well. So this is like a global crisis. Women shouldn't be bearing the brunt of that. But also in terms of like men's health stats, men are, I think, 3 times more likely to die by suicide. Men live 5 years less on average than women. So men need to start paying attention to all of these stats and making lifestyle changes. And, I think some of that has to do with the products you interact with, but also bigger picture, I think that has to do with some of the inherited effects of toxic masculinity from earlier generations. And luckily that's changing. And as I said earlier, allows brands like mine to exist because men are taking better care of themselves now. They're not, peacocking with drugs and alcohol as much, and, not talking about their feelings and taking their anger out in unhealthy ways. Things are changing, but there's a lot of work to do.
Yes. Yeah. And we frequently on the podcast, we have debunked, unraveled, pulled the threads on the idea of toxic masculinity as just like a thing that ends up triggering so many men just in reactivity against this. Don't say that, don't say it. But then you kind of did what we do, which is let's look at the particular behaviors that we're talking about as healthy or unhealthy, socially positive, socially effective, socially like all of these kind of things, right? So peacocking, shutting ourselves down, drugs and alcohol, all the numbing behaviors. Men are far less likely to seek help, whether it be even physical health or mental health, services, all of these kinds of things. And the policing that we do of one another around, oh, really? Really, dude? Like, what are you, a wimp? What are you, a this? What are you, a that? Like, all of that kind of language and policing.
I never thought of it in that way, the policing. Yeah, it's very true. And like you were saying, like men don't go to the doctor. Like, why aren't you going to the doctor for your annual checkup?
Yes. And my personal, you said there's not a lot of family history for you. Opposite for me. Like,
right.
multiple lines of family history, connections with cancer, connections with all of these other things. So it's been one of those things where I have had to say, you know what? It is like good, positive thing to have regular checkups. It is a good, positive thing to go to a dermatologist once a year and have that whole giant organ on my body checked out for all of these different things. Yes.
Knowledge is power.
So let's talk about product for a little bit. So I was thinking about our episode and walked into CVS, the CVS pharmacy that we use right down the street. And one of the first things I saw is there is now a little poster thing with John Legend's face on it over a whole set of skincare products for men. So talk about how different the environment is for this stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think that so as little knowledge as I had about the beauty and grooming industry, it's super easy to break into. If you are, willing enough and driven enough, like you can learn how to do it. You can work with a product development consultant, a contract manufacturer, and make a product. You can even private label products. Some people just like slap their name onto a pre-made product that's kind of stocked at a manufacturer. Not saying John Legend did that. I doubt he did that. But because of that, my point is a ton of people are entering, and women's is completely oversaturated.
Yes.
You see every celebrity has their own brand. But now that's starting to happen to men. So what I will say is we are one of the cleanest brands out there, and most people entering don't enter as clean as we are. You'll see the general industry is going in two directions. There's like the science-backed claims and then the clean claims. And that's where most brands are entering these days. But I mean, like you have like the celebrity brands that have this built-in community, so they do well. I don't know what their staying power is, but The Rock also just launched a line that's in Target nationwide. But men's I think is kind of like the new frontier, as there's more room to reach more men who are now discovering skincare, but also women's has just so many brands to compete with.
It is gigantic and overwhelming for sure. So what does clean mean?
Yeah, clean is a word that everyone hates, industry and outside the industry, because it's kind of misleading. It can mean so many different things. We define it kind of how the EWG, the Environmental Working Group, defines it, and that just means like better for you and the environment. So, we're very thoughtful about what's on our no list, they call it. So we don't include thousands of chemicals that are banned in the EU in our formulas, for example, that are legal here but not legal in the EU. You'll even see brands like Colgate will have different formulas in the EU than in the US, instead of just making one formula that meets the same standards for the EU in the US, which is, I think, should be illegal. That's crazy that they're using less quality ingredients that aren't banned in the US, and not in the UK, but or EU. But yeah, so clean generally is better for you in the environment. And how do you define that is kind of a personal choice. What I found when I was trying to find clean products was my criteria was so clean that basically no one fit it.
Ah,
So I only found like 3 women's brands that I really truly thought were clean, that I was comfortable using, that fit kind of my organic threshold and didn't have any of the chemicals that I did not want in my skincare. I'd like to add there is a such thing as like a safe synthetic. So there are synthetic ingredients that aren't bad for you, that we're not against using, but we like to say that we're plant powered. All of our actives are plant based, and we don't make these like 100% natural claims that a lot of people do. I think that's kind of misleading as well. Um, but we are certified 70% or more organic. We're allowed to make that claim legally.
it seems insane to me that saying something is plant powered and 70% organic and clean is radical.
I know, right? 70% doesn't even sound that organic, but we wanted to make, and we're more than 70%. It's just kind of a legality thing that we have to, for our certification, say 70%. Um, but you see all these brands that say, have asterisks on the back and says certified organic ingredient, but then they won't tell you how organic. And really, you can't deduce the level based on the formula, because there could be like 5 organic ingredients highlighted at the bottom, but that can be less than 1% of the formula. So we wanted to make it very clear, even if it didn't always sound like a law to anyone or to everyone, that this is our percentage, so that you weren't left kind of confused. And the sophisticated customer appreciates that.
Customers, yes. So you said something in answers to questions when I presented them to you in writing about customer feedback and what you kind of have had to face as a men's skincare brand. I'm guessing there's some global broad brush strokes here, but what's the kind of stuff that you see popping up in your socials?
Yeah, I mean, there's always the positive and the negative, and the positive is really exciting. Like you'll get reviews, or comments like best moisturizer I've used. I couldn't believe I got such a close shave from a non-aerosol shave cream. People of all ages, like, thank you for like making this 60-year-old man's day with this product I've been looking for. And then younger Gen Z kids, so that's always validating. But then you get the haters too, like, I only need bar soap, like why would I pay this much, like, I can get the same thing at a drugstore for less. And I'm like, okay, well, we're trying to educate as we go as to why this matters, and why you should care about your ingredients, and why quality is important. And, generally, like, this is all important, but at the end of the day, like, our efficacy is the most important. Like, you need the product to work, and it's amazing. Like, so we don't sacrifice anything by not using harsh chemicals. And you'll see, even historically, like, plant-powered actives have always been very important, and even non-clean
Right.
brands, they just have other ingredients as well. But yeah, there's definitely like this divide where you see people really excited about it, and then I'd say some of the more, you know, the guys who don't understand why you would take care of your skin.
Can we talk about homophobia? Just like, can we just actually out that in the conversation?
Yeah, for sure. I think that this is kind of not to drop the toxic masculinity bomb, but I think that there is also a lot of like projecting you see in the comments of like, this is for women, like only women use skincare, like, you know, not we don't get a ton of flat out like gay comments, which is great because it just signals that that's being used less, which
That's,
is
yeah.
something
Hey, cool.
we always like. But there's a lot of kind of like gendering of the whole conversation of like, this is for women, not for men, or why would I use this, I'm a dude, and that's disappointing. But honestly, I was expecting more of it, and I think that that's been kind of a good surprise. But there's definitely uh, a funny association with like taking care of yourself being a
Feminine.
feminine act. It was so funny and nonsensical.
Nonsensical. Yes. It seems to me that, like, I don't know what the hell is a real man. Complicating masculinity. That's what we're intending to do here in the Mankind podcast. But like, seems like strength based. If I care about my family and I care about having an impact on the world and I care about like making a difference, then I care about myself enough to actually take care of this vehicle that's
Totally.
taking me through the world.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're in the middle of like a big like seismic shift when it comes to all of this stuff. So, um, you know, they're the people who are pro, the people who are con, but like some of these like big fitness influencers who some of like the most like mask, for less of a better word, bros follow, like they're loving our product and they're like big proponents of physical health, but also appearance. And one big thing that was kind of on our side with the growth of the skincare industry and men embracing our product is that we're on screens all the time
Yes.
now. Um, and with COVID, people started embracing these like health and wellness trends, whatever that may be for you. So for some people, that was exercise. For some people, that was like a long shower. For some people, that was a skincare routine. For some people, that was tea at night. So, I think like just as I mentioned, we're in the middle of this shift, and it's been beneficial to our brand, but we still have a long way to go.
I have now been using Jackfir products for a couple of months. Here's what I like most about it: the smell. What I like most about the cleanser that I've been using, not every day and many days, is that it smells so good. And it's, can you just, I mean, you can describe what the product's like.
Yeah, so I love to hear that you love the smell because it is different than a lot of the chemical smells you get. So one of the big things is fragrance is its own ingredient that you can list legally in the US on a product and not disclose what's in it, which could include thousands of unlisted chemicals, which blows my mind. So we knew we'd do not only a natural fragrance, but we would use only essential oils and break down by oil what was in our product on the ingredient list. So we don't have fragrance anything on our ingredient list. We have the actual oils broken out for you to see. So transparency was important, but it's a different fragrant experience. And we knew we wanted it to be earthy, semi-woodsy, but not like hit you in the face like pine, which a lot of men's products are. So we say it's like a light earthy scent, and I love it as well. I'm glad you do too. Um, but yeah, it's kind of reflective of these oils come from woods and plants, and that's exactly what informs not only our ingredients but the aesthetics of the brand too. We're inspired by the Adirondack State Park, where I grew up going as a kid,
Ah,
and that's just reflective of the state and national parks, and even our name Jackfir, Jack, pine, fir, tree, made into one word. They're all informed by evergreens and the woods and getting outside and getting out of the city. So yeah, I mean, like, we're using active ingredients that we think are amazing, and they're found in nature. So all of our skincare products are organic aloe
mm,
based, which is a tried and true ingredient that we all know from when we got sunburned as a kid. But it's super hydrating, and skin conditioning. It's been used since ancient Egypt. I think they have record of it.
wow.
I think they said that like Cleopatra used it. It's wild. And then, we use things like organic calendula, we use a microalgae solution, we use upcycled apples from apple juice production, we use upcycled pine bark in our eye cream, which has skin conditioning benefits. So, yeah, we're just like natural through and through.
What's the scrubby in the scrub?
So the physical exfoliant is jojoba beads, and that's like it's like a plant seed.
Plant seed. Got it. Yes, there it
Yep.
is. And I was wondering about the Jack for not necessarily the name, but tell me about growing up going to the Adirondack State Park.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we had this old, like, rustic family cabin in the woods that we would go to every summer and have the best time of our lives, like, not on our screens, not watching TV. All you do is swim, hike, canoe, cookout. Like, it was just like kind of where I'd go to like recenter. And at the time I didn't know that. I was a child. But the older I get, the more I appreciate it. And I even went to camp there. And as a kid, I was really like not into camp.
Mm,
But when I look back on it, I'm like, wow, how did I not take advantage of it? Like, that camp was the most amazing place ever. Of course, hindsight's 2020. Um, but yeah, it's just it was firsthand experience with how important it is to get into nature, just the benefits of one, exercise, two, the natural world, just the smell of the woods.
yep.
The Japanese call it Shinrin Yoku. It's forest bathing, and it really like affects your soul and mental clarity.
Say that word again. Shinrin-yoku.
Yes.
Forest bathing. Lovely.
Yeah.
Look at
Yeah.
that.
The Adirondacks are amazing. I think that a lot of New Yorkers don't even know it exists. You go up there and it feels like you're in Wisconsin or something.
It's yeah, it's good stuff. It's a good spot. And that's what Jackfir smells like. That's kind of, but it's not like fake. It's not fake Christmas tree, right? It's like you said,
No.
right? It's not like pine smacks you in the face. It's a
Right.
subtle thing. I'll just go to. I am cheap. I'll just say that like straight up, and um, that is one of the things when I look at products like Jackfir, like other products that are out there, there's this thing that goes through me that is, oh my gosh, this is so expensive. This is so da 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 da. And yet, um, I have had that face scrub now 3 months. Yes, at least 3 months.
Mhm.
And the amount that I have to use every day, like I'm still using the same original tube that,
Yeah.
like it is a consumable product. You will have to get more. But so talk about value and talk about money.
Yeah, I think that especially as a small indie brand, you need, and when you're trying to be more clean, your products just cost more. And we just had the thesis that if something's better quality, then people will pay more, and it's definitely proven to be the case. I understand some people's hesitancy towards that because money is important and you need to think about where you're spending. That was one of my biggest gripes when I got into clean living, is my life became more expensive. Like, clean products cost more. And a lot of that has to do with things like the farm bill and these big ag companies that control everything and that affect the pricing of good products and good food and good ingredients. And it's just like massive effect that starts at the like federal and state level, which is crazy to think about. But we weren't, with all that said, we were comfortable pricing our products between $36 and $48 because we do think it reflects the quality of the product as well. So it's always like a funny struggle. Of course, I'd love this to be a mass brand that, provided each of these products for $8 at your local drugstore, but the brand wouldn't be able to exist in that form. So, it's just this push pull of how do we best service our customers, but one, reflect the quality, two, make enough money to exist. And yeah, but as you said, with that said, I wanted to be cognizant of the sizing because a lot of brands will offer you, for example, like a 1.5 ounce moisturizer that you have to re-up all the time. Ours is 3 ounces, so that's a double the size. So our moisturizer is 46, so that would become like $23, which for some people is more stomachable when you think about that. But our products definitely last longer, so I appreciate you noticing that.
Yeah, it did for sure. There's a more macro thing around. So entrepreneurial thinking. I heard you say you were in Italy getting your MBA, which you then finished at NYU. Is that what you said?
Yep.
Which you then finished at NYU. And that downward force of cheapness, right? So in order to be in those big box stores, what's the landscape for a business owner who wants to make a very high quality product and also be out in the market?
Yeah, I mean, we always say we're kind of like in this price range, kind of like mastige/prestige and not luxury. So it's this funny thing where you are limited on your distribution potential. So like for us, Amazon's been a really big game changer. We got on there in October, and that's basically equally as large as our website now in terms of revenue. We're just reaching customers where they shop, and today that's more and more Amazon. Over 60% of skincare searches start on Amazon, so you can't not be there. But you're also seeing a premiumization in the industry. So a lot of these ingredients are getting more expensive. You get emails from brands you love that are like, hey, sorry to do this to you, but we're raising our prices. We don't have to do that because of our pricing strategy. Like, we knew the quality, we were able to charge what we needed to. And we haven't had to increase our prices yet, which we're happy about. But that said, I think you're also starting to see more premium products in places like Target and Walmart. So I think that I think that we'll be able to one day expand into these bigger box retailers. Like a Sephora and Ulta also is definitely on the horizon, but I'd say less immediate of a need to us. That's something we'll grow into, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, then there are the traditional like Nordstroms and Saxes and Bloomingdale's, which have always kind of championed prestige skincare. But yeah, we've only been around for about a year and a half. So right now, this year, we're really focused on distribution and getting into some of these bigger retailers.
Yeah. Advice for entrepreneurs, and this could be, you said the skincare market is very easy to get into. There are other markets that are easy to get into. You found your passion and purpose through something that happened to you that woke you up to what you're doing. So,
Yeah.
what do you have to say to entrepreneurs out there who are looking to break into something?
I mean, I would say that for me, when you have a good idea, it's less scary to click go. So I always thought that I wanted to start a menswear company after my previous experience was 4 years at a startup swimwear company that did quite well. I was the first non-founder employee, really thought I understood the industry and was really obsessed with men's fashion from like a personal consumer perspective. But I kept dragging my feet because none of my ideas were really different, like differentiated my product, or it sounded too much like a passion or a hobby that maybe wasn't a business in my head. So I like never clicked go. And then as soon as I was struggling to find these products for myself after this massive health event, I was so frustrated. I was like, I have to make this product. Like, there have to be other people like me. There have to be people who would be willing to pay more for better quality. Like, and I did research on it, and it happened to be the case. And then it just comes down to click and go. So I knew I had the idea that made sense to me, and I was willing to put my savings into and ask friends and family for their money and fundraise. Like, at that point, it's very clear that you believe in yourself and your idea, and entrepreneurship's less scary. Um, so yeah, my advice would be listen to your gut when you really think you do have that idea, and then just start, because once you start, you can't really stop and go back.
Are there any red flags, anything that you've run into that was like, ah, shit, shouldn't have done that?
Um, yeah, I mean, like, there are definitely like things that are a bummer. I remember I was so stressed out with how long it was taking to get to market, just because we were getting all these certifications. You have no control over their turnaround time. The formula process takes a long time to get to where you want to. There are certain things it takes around like 2 years to get a clean product to market, and I like thought I could do it faster, and I couldn't. And because I was being so impatient, my manufacturer almost dumped me. And in hindsight, I get it. I was being like a terrorist. So you really have to be patient, I would say, and be kind. And then yeah, like, take your time. Like, we've had debacles where like something was printed wrong, and like we had to reorder them before we could make the product. It's just a lot about patience.
Yes. And where, so you're focused right now on distribution and focused on kind of a year and a half in, has this business opened your eyes to other opportunities about where you might be headed?
um Yes and no. Like, we're wanting to release probably like one new product a year for the time
Mm.
being, but we're really focused on getting the product offering we currently have into as many hands as possible. So, um, we believe that like kind of slow and steady wins the race. We're not trend driven. We're not like a TikTok brand. We just want to be this dependable heritage clean brand. So right now it's just kind of like moving forward, getting the current offering uh, into as many eyeballs and as many hands as possible.
Yes.
One thing I will mention is that I found you all originally through a cool article in GQ that really championed what you guys are doing over at Mankind Project, and it immediately stood out to me, and I immediately emailed you, and that's why I'm so happy to be here. But then I will say, last week we had our first GQ feature, so it's a full circle moment.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
awesome.
Yeah,
We're not in the same industry at all, and yet we're kind of looking in the same direction.
totally.
Um, we are interested in creating cultures where whatever it is that we need to get through so that we can take care of ourselves better and take care of the
Yeah,
people we love better and take care of the planet better
right.
than we do
I
right
mean,
now.
I think that everyone needs to stop taking things so seriously. I think that, we're here for a short time. Why not be your true self? Why care when other people are their true selves? And just like try to be happy?
So, Charlie, where can folks find Jackfir products and find out more about the company and you?
Yeah, so you can go to jackfir.com, Jackfir, where you can order. You can also order on Amazon. We are in around 40 boutiques nationwide, so you can find our store locator as well on our website to see if there are any near you. And then we're in Fellow Barber nationwide, which has 11 stores nationwide. So yeah, stay on the lookout. We'll be in some more places soon, and excited for everyone to give it a try.
Yeah, thank you for bringing your purpose into reality.
Thanks so much. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
This has been the Mankind Podcast, produced in association with the Mankind Project USA. And I personally want to thank our guests for joining us today and imparting their wisdom from their experiences in this amazing journey called life. Now, the fee for this episode is simple. If you found gold and insights that you believe could benefit your loved ones and those you care about, be sure to share it with them. And of course, remember that life doesn't happen to us. It happens for us, so long as we rip the pen out of fate's hand and become the author of our own story. So my friend, pick up the pen and we'll see you next week. Lots of love.